Former executive turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Connie is ridiculously dedicated to inspiring individuals to activate their power and live their dream as a lifestyle entrepreneur. It's time to sit down, lie down, or squat down and turn up the volume. Up or Out with Connie starts right now.
Well, hello and welcome to Activating the Power of Women, the podcast. I'm Connie Pheiff, your transformational speaker, mentor, and coach. And if you're looking for inspiration, motivation, and just want those tools to excel in business, you've really come to the right place. So hang on to your seats because we have a phenomenal guest today. She is the author of The Workplace Wellness That Works. And she's also the CEO and founder of Motion Infusion, which is a leading well-being and learning provider. Her work has been covered on MSNBC, the New York Times, U.S. News and World Report, Entrepreneur, Business Insider, and NPR. She's also a former urban public high school teacher, L&D professional, public policy advocate. That's something I've always been interested in. An international community organizer, dancer, gymnast, and now a movement builder in the world of health and well-being. With the mission to get people and organizations in motion, she is a frequent keynote speaker and worked with a range of organizations from Fortune 500 to government agencies to academic institutes to nonprofits. She's a recipient of the American Heart Association's 2020 Impact Award, as well as the National Wellness Institute Circle of Leadership Award. She's a graduate from Brown University and Stanford University, and she comes to us from San Francisco, where she lives with her fiance. Please welcome Laura Putnam.
Thanks, Connie. It's really nice to be back.
So you've done so many incredible things, and now you've come to the place where it's all about getting people in motion, getting people moving from people, and people inside of organizations. So you're talking about having that energy, but do you have the energy to be an effective leader?
Yeah. I think that this is the reason why I ask this question a lot is because I think it's hard for a lot of people to make the connection between wellness and their day-to-day life. And sometimes a better way to reframe that is asking leaders and managers and for other women leaders out there, asking them the question, do you have the energy that you need to be an effective leader? And energy starts with well-being. I mean, kind of case in point, my aunt had this great sticker that was on her refrigerator that read, "The bridge between despair and hope is a good night's sleep." So it's pretty basic.
Yeah, it's pretty. You can't get any basic than that,
right? And we, the bridge between being an ineffective leader versus an effective one is often something as simple as getting enough sleep. And so when we think about energy, it derives from a lot of different places, but we cannot ignore the role that well-being plays in having energy. And well-being, not just physical, although that's extremely important, but also well-being on an emotional level. I mean, certainly we're seeing a lot of evidence of that today with the loss of Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, that we can't ignore emotional well-being. And here are these people who are just, at the peak of their careers. And we can't ignore things like emotional well-being or financial well-being or community well-being, social well-being. All of these really factor into our capacity to have the energy that we need to be an effective leader.
And in finding that life balance, because I'll admit it. I've led several organizations, and it could be really exhausting. It really can, to the point where even that emotional energy, because as they say, when you're at the top, it's lonely. I don't want to say it was lonely, but sometimes you just don't know who to go to, who to talk and who to confide in without feeling less of a person or out feeling weak.
And I think that as women, frankly, we kind of feel like we doubly have to show our strengths and can't show vulnerability. And I think to just be able to say, look, I'm running out of steam here. I need to step back and get some more balance in my life. I think that can be even harder for women who are really trying to move forward and prove their worth. That we have to work extra hard. I mean, case in point, I'm for all women. As a woman watching Hillary Clinton go through her campaign, and when she collapsed, all these people are saying, "Oh, she doesn't have the strength to run for president," and it's like, she's exhausted, and she's
it has to be exhausting. I mean, you gotta be on like every second of the day. I mean, who knows how many hours she had to sleep, but I mean, again, I just know as being a leader, you got to be on.
That's right.
And there's some days where you just don't have it in you to do that. And you just have to pull it together and make it happen. So, yes.
The interesting thing, though, is I think that what leaders overlook sometimes is that actually one of the greatest gifts that you can give your team is the gift of showing some vulnerability.
Yes.
Especially around well-being and balance. And when you model for them caring for yourself, then you actually give them permission to do the same. So a part 2 question around, looking at leadership is, do I have the energy that I need to be an effective leader? And especially as a woman, am I really paying attention to that? But then the second is, am I doing my part to build a winning team? And a winning team also starts with well-being.
Right. And you hit it too about being vulnerable. And I wrote a blog on this about a year ago about being vulnerable. And it hit home with so many people, so many leaders saying, and I shared some examples of what I've done in my years. I remember one in particular, one of my staff, her son was really sick. And we had a big event that day. And I knew she just was off, when she was there. And I finally pulled her aside and I said, "Hey, Rachel, like what's going on?" And she's like, "Oh, my son is home and he's sick." And I looked at her and I said, "So why are you here?" And she said, but because we have this big event going on. And I said, "If I've said it 1,000 times, your family comes first. And there's enough of us, you will be missed, but we will all pitch in, and myself included, to make sure that this event went off the way that it did." So that it's really important, like you said, be vulnerable and share things like that. And so many women in that leadership role are fearful of sharing that vulnerability, like we said, for fear of looking weak. But then how do we have that energy just to get up every day and go and say, "This is what we're going to do"? That's what I want to hear more from you about.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with, first and foremost, asking the question, do I have the energy that I need? And really starting to pay attention to what gives me energy versus what depletes my energy. So trying to fill my day with more of those kinds of things that fill me up, if you will. So for example, one of the things that I love to do, I love to start off my day with just making a cup of coffee and going out by the water, sitting outside and kind of collecting myself. I guess it's my way of meditating, kind of connecting and being in nature. And I know if I do that I will have more energy for the day. So that's a way for me to engage in self-care. But another piece of this is starting to move away from the idea of time management to energy management. And this is coming from the work of Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz, who Jim Loehr started a company called the Human Performance Institute. Tony Schwartz started a company called the Energy Project. And the two are former sports psychologists who then moved into the space of working with leaders in a corporate setting. So they came up with this notion of manage your energy, not your time. And I think it really fits. And so kind of imagine, okay, if they have this whole nice grid that they laid out in this book called The Power of Full Engagement. It's an old book, but a great book to read. And x-axis is your energy and y-axis is your output. So when you're at maximum energy and maximum output, this is when you're in your performance zone. So this is where a lot of us, we try to stay because we want to be that top leader.
Right.
And the problem is that we're human beings. We're not machines. And so
this is true.
start to, run out of energy if we're not taking time to restore. So then we move into what they characterize as the survival zone. So this is now moving into the top left quadrant. So we're starting to run out of energy, but we're still sustaining the same level of output. And this is when we start reaching for the quick fixes, whatever it takes to kind of get from point A to point B.
Right.
The coffee, the sugar, whatever.
The energy drinks.
Exactly. And again, no matter how much we caffeinate ourselves, we invariably our output will start to go down. Our energy will go down even further. And this is where we hit burnout. So this is a cycle that I think many of us are familiar with. That we go through over and over and over again, that we're in that top performance zone, but invariably we don't take the time to restore. So then we're ultimately going to hit burnout. And so there's another way, which is to keep our energy level, but to think about proactively restoring along the way. So this is the idea of kind of dropping down into the bottom right quadrant. So where we temporarily bring our output down and we sustain our energy. And so it might be a quick walk around the block. It might be connecting with a friend. It might be even just stepping out of our office and stepping outside for a moment. Yeah. Those brief moments of restoration actually increase our energy and therefore increase our output. So what they suggest is this idea of thinking about net productivity over face time. And so if you think about dropping down on your face time in the office, but instead I'm going to restore along the way, even 2-minute breaks, and I'm really going to guide my team in doing the same, then I'm more effectively managing my energy. And guess what? My productivity goes up, and so does the productivity for my team.
Right. Because that was a question I was going to have. How does that come into play in the workspace when you have teams working together? So what if you have one member of the team that's in that quadrant of where they're losing and depleting their energy when somebody else is going? So who is it up to then, the leader, to say, hey, you need to step out just for a couple of minutes, refresh, and let's regroup here in 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's that. I mean, I like to think about it in 3 domains. So every leader, if they want to build a winning team, first and foremost, they know that it starts with themselves. So if they model it, then their team members are likely to follow suit. Okay. So I call this do. So first and foremost, to become that multiplier of well-being for your team, to help your team to perform it at its best, to build that high-performing team, first and foremost, you think about leading by example. So I call that do. Okay. The second is speak, which is to think about engaging your team members in well-being, literally one conversation at a time. So it might be something like that, to say, hey, it looks like you're really running out of steam here. Why don't you take a quick break and then we can reconvene? Or kind of looking around the team and going, wow, everybody looks pretty exhausted, but hey, why don't we break for 5? Or why don't we take a moment here to share our favorite movie or whatever it is, just a quick energy break.
A bit of a shift to where they're working, and that brings up that energy all back into play.
That's exactly right. And then the third is create. How can I, as a team leader, think about creating systems within my team that make well-being easy and normal? What are some team-based rituals? So it might be something as simple as one manager at an organization we worked with called the Bay Area Community Resources. She has coloring time with her team. So, they're under a lot of pressure. They're working with kids who have a lot of needs. Right. And so they take time to restore with just some coloring time. I mean, it can be something that simple, and it's something that they do together as a team. It's fun, but it's a way for them to restore.
That's interesting. When I do my leadership masterclass, we have coloring time.
I love it. Right. Yeah.
Because you're sitting there with a room full of executives, and it's like, okay, we need to take a break here. And because when you color, the color and the smell of the crayons actually reinvigorate your creative processes in your brain. That gets those creative juices just flowing. So we do color time in our master class.
Right. And we know that innovation and creativity And even productivity is a little bit like chasing a cat. You have to allow for it to emerge.
Yes.
And so when we kind of step back, and that's really well-being. I mean, we can call it different names. And that's why I think sometimes it's better to call it energy management or restoration as opposed to wellness. But it's whatever it allows you to engage in a moment of self-care. You kind of pull away from the project, and then suddenly these great ideas come to mind. I mean, it's no coincidence that we come up with our best ideas when we're trying to go to sleep, for example. That's usually when I come up with my best ideas. Or we're taking a shower, it's just these, we kind of take a moment away, and then our best selves start to emerge.
I come up with my best when I'm at the gym. I do.
Right.
I'm working out or I'm spinning or whatever. My husband will say, "So what did you create today?" I'm like, "Oh, wait till I tell you. I got this new idea."
And the interesting thing, there's some real science behind that. So when we move, what happens is, first and foremost, we get more blood to the brain, right? So we have more oxygen, so we're actually able to think better. It also facilitates more connections between brain cells. So again, we're engaging in more whole brain thinking. And then the amazing thing is that exercise is one of the best things that we can do for actually producing new brain cells. So we actually build a stronger brain through movement.
Through exercise.
And that's exactly right.
I love that. Well, we have some questions that we ask all of our guests.
Okay.
One is, what is your definition of vulnerability?
Oh, I love that question. And, I have to say, I'm going to borrow from Brene Brown. And I just love, and I say this to myself a lot because I think I, like many, many other women, I put so much pressure on myself.
Yes.
And I say to myself over and over again, channeling Brene Brown, I say to myself, I'm enough. I'm enough. And to me, that's what vulnerability is to be able to say, I'm enough right now. I'm enough.
Right.
I'm so imperfect. And
I know.
I'm enough. And that's vulnerability.
It is. I seen a quote recently. I don't know if it was her, but it just sounded like it would have been something she said. And it went, and I'll probably say it wrong. It went something like, we need to be strong. Oh, no, we need to be brave. We don't need to be perfect.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And what we were saying before about even being vulnerable, it's, for many, I think for most, it's being brave to be vulnerable, to let other people see you, warts and all, and even as a leader. And then the other thing too, and I learned that a long time ago myself, when you do that, they see you differently.
That's right.
And they respect you differently, and it takes on a whole new dimension of that relationship that you have.
And I love seeing women who really model that courage in the face of imperfection. One of my favorite examples of this is a woman by the name of Bethany Hamilton.
Okay.
And you may remember the story of a young girl who, I think she was 12 at the time, and she was in Hawaii surfing with her.
Oh, yes.
And she was attacked by a shark and lost her arm. So she is now, believe it or not, one of the top women surfers in the world. And she's able to paddle and kick into these waves, these huge waves, and win these international surf contests. And, here she is, she's lost her arm, and what courage for her to come back and show that vulnerability.
Right.
And she in turn apparently has, first of all, she's married and she has a couple of kids, and she's actually started a camp for children who have lost a limb.
With disability, yeah.
That's right. And so that to me is just perfect example of, women, we have to not only be top performers, but we have to look perfect.
Right.
And here's somebody obviously who, in the traditional sense, no longer looks perfect.
Right.
And, but she's out there showing incredible courage.
Yeah, I remember reading her story, but truly. I think she was motivated from that school. Wasn't she she was helping with like a mission, and there were some kids there that were disabled. And I remember part of that story being that's what really drove her to help these other kids, to show them like you don't have to have to be perfect. So I love that.
Right.
I love that.
That's right.
So another one is I believe. So finish that sentence. I believe.
I believe we're enough, and I believe that each of us can be more. So we're enough right now, but also we can become more. And we've got this great life right now. And I remind myself over and over again that this actually isn't my practice life. It's my real life right now.
I know, right?
And I also, I believe it's never too late. I think often we think, oh, shoot, I should have done that 20 years ago.
Right.
And, you know, for example, when I really pursued my career as a professional dancer, I really started really full time at the age of 31. And for many people, they were like, oh, that's way too old. And it's like, no, it's not too late. Maybe it'll be in a different way than it would have been had I started right out of college, right after being a competitive gymnast. But it's not too late. And so I think that's what I really believe that as well. And I'm constantly reminding myself of that.
Love that. So the world right now is kind of a crazy time going on right now. So what do you think is the greatest wound that we are facing in the world today?
The greatest wound? Oh, wow. I mean, certainly one, I think, is always being on. And this phenomenon of a great title for a book is Alone Together, that we are together, but not really. And that all of us can do amazing things when we truly connect with one another. And simple things like, how often now do I go out for dinner and I see couples who are having dinner together and each of them is having a separate conversation with their cell phone.
Right. I've had so many conversations that has been coming up lately, and more people they're having a rule now, no phones at dinner time, and actually breaking away from social media and not being on social media as much as they were before. And I think I think we do need to do that. I think we've come to like a peak of, okay, we need to start talking to each other.
Right. And I think, you know, even being able to like see you face to face as we have this conversation, that makes a difference. And having more and more of those connections. But I know that all of us, we would not be where we are without our connections. And so and so having continuing to build those is really foundational.
It definitely
so healing that wound.
It is. And going back to, like we said, we've lost so many great people recently. I actually lost a family member in February, same thing, who had committed suicide. But so they feel so alone. So, and I think technology plays a piece of it because you're not actually physically with that person, having that conversation with that person.
That's right. And I think also with social media, of course, really plays into that feeling of I'm not enough, because we're always comparing ourselves and looking at, you know, oh, I'm not as much as they are in this regard. And so it really drives that.
Oh, I want to be the next Kardashian.
Yep.
So where do you find your balance of making things happen when sometimes you need to let things go?
I mean, I remind myself over and over again that it's production over perfection.
Okay.
Just, it's better to do it imperfecly than to not do it at all. And I'm definitely have the curse of being both a perfectionist and a procrastinator.
Well, that's
not a good combination. Right? Not a good combination. So, but just, even if I'm starting later than I should have on something, just to remind myself, again, good enough. And it's better to do something than to feel like it has to be perfect. And the truth of the matter is that as more and more things start to happen for us as we move up in our careers, we just have to let go of that perfection. Because there are so many things on our plates and that we just have to let go and just go, okay, good enough. Good enough. Good enough.
We can go. Good enough. Dinner's ready. It's good enough.
And I also think a lot about the technology companies that embrace this idea of launch and iterate. Like, okay, we're going to launch it. We're going to try it out. It'll be imperfect. And we can always iterate and make it better. Right. And I think that to really adopt that growth mindset of it's not where I want it to be yet.
Right.
But I can keep iterating to get to that
until we get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And reminding ourselves of people like Thomas Edison, who just kept trying over and over and over.
Times, like 500 and sometimes he tried.
That's right, 1,000 times before he invented the light bulb. And apparently, a reporter asked him, how do you feel about the fact that it took you, you failed 1,000 times before you invented the light bulb? And Thomas Edison apparently responded back, no, the light bulb is an invention that required 1,000 steps. So it's really understanding that it takes steps, and it's better to iterate along the way.
Right. And that's when you hear people saying, "Oh, it was an overnight success." It's like, really?
No.
It took 20 years to get to that overnight.
That's right. It's perseverance. He has another less known quote, which is, most miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like hard work.
Oh, I don't know that one.
So again, persistence, just working hard.
That's right. Persistence. So what is that one thing that makes your heart swell?
I think feeling like I'm becoming my better self and that I'm inspiring others to do the same.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like. Mm-hmm.
Love that. Mm-hmm. So you offered a giveaway.
Yes.
Okay. A copy of your book.
Yep.
Okay. So how do you want to do that? So what I'll do, I'll have first one, first two, first three, how many people you want to give that book away to. And I'll have them send me an email to book me at activatemypower.com.
Okay.
And then also, you could also learn more about Laura at motioninfusion.com. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So happy to provide a book for the first three.
Okay.
So that'll be 3 books total. And so you can just let me know, and then happy to send the book off to each of those.
Awesome.
Lucky people. Mm-hmm.
So what's next? Where do you go from here?
So I'm actually getting ready to leave tomorrow morning to spend 2 weeks in Calgary, Canada, where I'm really dedicating myself to getting to work on my second book. And my second book is really on this topic of becoming that multiplier of well-being, and really understanding this idea of people who are uniquely positioned to either persuade or dissuade the people around them from engaging in well-being. So in the workplace, it's actually evidence suggests that it is the manager who's uniquely positioned to persuade in a positive way to become that multiplier of well-being for their team members. And so while there's been a lot of emphasis on senior leaders, evidence suggests that it really seems to come down to the manager. So it's call to action to every manager. Like, you can really become that multiplier of well-being. And actually, if you're not taking on that role by embracing do, and create, you're probably acting as a gatekeeper, where you're actually getting in the way of your team members.
Oh, that's interesting.
And they're becoming their better selves, and really helping managers, these team leaders, to understand the connection between well-being and each of us becoming our better selves and building that high-performing team.
Okay.
But this book is also going to take a look at some of the unlikely multipliers. So, for example, some really interesting research conducted by the Stanford Pediatric Obesity Research Team. So obviously they're really trying to help prevent childhood obesity.
Right.
And originally they started off with really focusing on the parent and engaging parents in parent education around prevention and lifestyle, adoption of healthy lifestyle habits. And here's what they discovered. They discovered actually that the more influential member of the household is actually the kid, not the parent. So they switched their focus from parental education to really educating kids so that kids could bring that message home and really become that multiplier of well-being within the home environment. So in the home environment, the kid is that one uniquely positioned to persuade or dissuade. So that's what the book is really going to be about.
I'm really interested in seeing that book when you're done.
Thanks.
Well, yeah, good luck with that. So you're going to have your writing time for the next couple of weeks.
That's right. So that's really the next piece on the docket. And then just continuing to do a ton of speaking and training managers and leaders. Got some exciting talks coming up, and including some international engagements that I'm really excited about. So
good.
A lot of different things that are happening. And those speaking events are always listed on the Motion Infusion website. Speaking tab. So anybody who's interested in finding out if I'm coming to their area, they're welcome to take note of that. One is a workshop though that I have coming up that some of the listeners might be interested in is a workshop in San Diego on August 15th. And it's called Activating Managers Boot Camp. And this is a day-long training that trains people to become that activator for managers. So whether you're a manager or you're someone who's working with managers within an organization, giving participants the tools to be able to come back to their organization and really build what I like to call a middle out movement. So a manager-driven movement of well-being within the organization.
Okay. Yeah, definitely send me that information.
I will. Too. Yeah. So that'll be with an event called the Welcoa Summit, but I'll send you the link.
Yes, definitely do that. Okay, we could share that with our listeners as well.
Perfect.
Well, I would love to keep talking. Because I everything that you talk about from the wellness, and as I said, because I'm always working out myself, I'm just trying to keep that mental energy, focus, and going. And when you don't, like last week, I traveled all week, and I haven't been in the gym in 5-6 days now. So I'm waiting to go to the gym tomorrow. I'm like, I gotta go.
Oh, good.
You just need that.
That's right.
For that clarity. You just really need that. But I want to thank you for being here. So much information that you've shared. And also for our listeners, if you want to learn more about Laura, just go to Laura at motioninfusion.com. And you want to learn more about Laura's message about the do, speak, and create, because it really, really will make a difference in your life. So this is Connie Pheiff, your unstoppable diva. And until next time, activate your power and let's all be unstoppable together.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening to Up or Out with Connie. If you like what you hear and would like to be a guest, email the team at bookme@uporout.com. Learn how you can activate your power at activatemypower.com. We'll see you over there. Activate your power and be unstoppable together.